As I come to you after not preaching for 4 weeks, this could be a good news or bad news. The good news, maybe you forget how to preach, so you have to preach shortly because you forget how to do it. Or you are so hungry for it, so you can go for on and on and on. This is not the good news. So I'm sure you want a short sermon today. So no, I'm very glad to be here with you and to continue our journey together as one family. The text today is very rich. The challenge for me is really echoing many things when I was reading that. Even it refreshed many memories from my background. So I could not forget when I read the story about this man who is well respected because of his position. We know his name, we know his title, we know a little bit about the family, a man who's really his daughter is dying. And then we jump into the second story about just this mysterious, unknown woman who comes and these two stories are very famous. So I'm not going to repeat what we already know. But as one of these things really is the idea of somebody, because they are a pastor or minister or priest or rabbi or whatever you like to call them, how sometimes they can press and not be honest about what happened in their life because of their titles, how they feel, how they react, how they think. You know, if anybody just want to do how they enjoy things, how respond to music and they go dance. But if the pastor respond to music and start to dance, people will not feel good about that. It's just the tradition of how to be yourself and be honest as a human being, and how many times we're just trying to hide behind our titles and our professions. So this is a story of a man who is working in the synagogue, and he knows about what's good and what's not. He knows how to be a good Jew, but he knows better how to be a good father. He knows that he tried to be very respectful, not to do anything to mess up with his category as the pastor or the priest. You know, he did all things to be respected and well-known. But when it comes to his family, to the loss of his own child to be closer to death, he was waiting which one is more stronger in his heart and his mind. And that gives you a lot of encouragement about really whatever you love more. You love your image, you love like how people look at you, how people will continue to respect you because of how you look. But sometimes we get the astonishment when we find something that we like more and we start to fight for that. Maybe this guy all his life was a good priest, well respected from his community, but he never thought about if I need something and I need to go in a road that I would not like to go. He's going to ask a troublemaker, a guy named Jesus Christ, is walking around, doing miracles, doing all of these things. And the whole community is talking about this guy, who Jesus Christ is. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he a good Jew? Or no, he is really just hiding like something from other traditions. He is Greek, but he's pretending to be a Jew, you know. He belongs to a different religion, but he pretends to be a Jewish. So with many, many question marks about Christ among all the Jews. So you can imagine, as a scholar, as a religious leader, he heard a lot about Jesus. And he questioned many questions. Is he the Messiah? Is he a good man? But definitely he heard about this man do amazing things. And when he was in deep need for his daughter, he forgot all of this. He put his career at risk. Not only his career, but his image. These people, they are known by the way they dress, you know, the way they walk, the way they talk in the community. So everything is measured very, very clearly. And this guy is not coming to talk to Christ like face to face. He comes and he kneels down and he's begging Christ for his own daughter. What an amazing love that he had for his daughter, to forget about his own image, how people look at me, how people will think of me. He does not care about anything else except, is there any way I can save my child? His love to his child at this moment was greater than everything else he built in his own life. He did not come to debate. He's a religious guy. He's a smart guy. He's a well-established guy. He can sit there and put leg on the other leg and just talk to a guy with strong voice and debate him. But he's coming as somebody in needs. He was not in needs for money, for material things, for many things that he had. He was in need for something that nobody else can offer except Christ. So this guy was really, the way he just threw himself down. I do not care about what everybody else will say. I only care about my child. My love for my child makes me forget judgment, anything, you can name it. Yes, this guy was really controlled by the love for his daughter. Even we later can talk about other things. But this is the main point. Just you want you to think as Mark is trying to teach us, and as I will keep repeating that. Mark is the oldest gospel. You hope you get kind of like, as the more I say it, the more you kind of like remember it, okay? He is the oldest gospel and the shortest. But also Mark has no time to tell us about details. So I was so surprised that why in this chapter, the chapter of 5, there is much details. Mark does not care about to make Christ looks like a magician. He's a great guy, he's performing miracles. Mark does not, he is a very busy guy, he does not have much time. So the other gospels tells you a lot of details. Mark's story is always short and to the point. Why in this chapter there is a lot of details? It seems like this is not Mark, or the other way to say it around, because it has a very deep theological meaning. So he seems focusing on the details because every details has a deep meaning here. So in chapter 5 that Mark is reminding us who knows Christ, who gets it, and who do not. He wants to surprise you about, if you read the whole gospel, and especially chapter 5, see who gets it and who's not. Who is in the real circle of Christ and who's in the fake one. You assume that his disciples is the closest one. You assume these 3 guys that will go later with him, as we don't know why he keep taking these 3 guys. We know they're famous. They went to the transfiguration when they went to the top mountain. Some scholars say because really he wants to teach them something, but also maybe he wants to keep them out of troubles. Maybe they get things wrong and they teach something wrong. He's actually keeping an eye on them. So come with me, guys. I cannot leave you behind. So this whole story that's reminding me about what do you love more will make you act differently. When you love something or someone more deeply, that can sometimes change your behavior, ways of thinking. As this guy come and telling him about his story, and in the middle of this story, we find another story comes in, with the woman who was really bleeding all her life, and she needs help. We do not know how long that happens with the 12 years old daughter. But we know that this woman was suffering for 12 years. She spent all her money, and no medicine is working. No good physician is giving her the answer. And we know the story goes on, and then what's the funny one that Christ will say about, somebody touched me. And maybe this is a different image, but if you really live in the Middle East today, there are many areas where you feel this way. If you ask this question, you know. I remember as a young being in Egypt, being on a public transportation, If you say that, people will laugh at you, because you are pushed by the crowd in and out of the bus. There is no choice, So the idea of somebody come close to you or even touching your body or people will make fun of you. But Christ was talking, this is the only special story that when we hear that Christ is talking about something coming out of his body. In all the miracles he performed, he never talked about that. He felt something is coming out of him. So in the story too, we did not hear that Christ called anybody else daughters. He said daughter when he gave her the relief. As this story is well known, I will share with you what triggered in my own personal kind of like story. When I was thinking about these two women, young woman who has a lot of privilege. She has a good father with a good career. He is very well known, but she's still a woman. She's not in the worst situation. The worst situation was the bleeding woman. She's a woman unknown, lost her money, and the assumption she lost her husband, because this kind of disease, they are not seeing as, oh, you are sick, you need some help and prayer. You are unclean human being. So this was a combination of oppression that's over than just somebody sick and needs help physically. When your physical sickness can take you deeper into spiritual sickness where nobody else can help you. We're like, what is my fault that I am a woman? And this is part of my normal body, and then something goes wrong, and then people will review that. And as early as I remember, as I grow up in the Coptic Orthodox Church, that I learned that really there are many rules that's very brutal about women and how they think of them. And as young as I can remember what's the difference between man's body and woman's body, and I start to learn, and then start to figure out and understand that women will not be allowed to come closer to the priest and receive communion. When they are on their periods, they cannot do that. They cannot do that. They are unclean. This is today. I'm not talking about 2,000 years. We're talking today. They cannot come and receive communion. And I was like, I have no idea why sometimes they take it, and sometimes I see they're very good holy women. But there are some time of the years they do not come and take communion. This is the church policy. This is the church attitude toward women today. I'm not saying that to judge them, but to give you an idea how brutal the community is against women and against children. When Christ calls out children, he was not just being a gentle, nice grandpa or a father in the circle. He was breaking a stereotype of how the community look at children. It's not like the way we think about children today. The way they look at children is there, the noisy, the messy, all the negative things. And if you are respectful in any family gathering, you keep two things away, women and children. Just imagine, this is the culture we are speaking of. And this is the story of two women, but one with some privilege and the other one, all the privilege was taken away from her. Just what is my fault to be who I am, to be born as a boy or a girl, and to get something and then being reviewed as unclean. So this was not just a miracle that Christ will just snap his fingers and say, "Boop, you got what you want." That when we walk in the journey of physical sickness, we get sick spiritually and mentally. The fear, the brokenness. Ask somebody who went through a stroke and something happened when they felt like maybe a light headache or something. They're not going to be like a normal, when they feel normal headache, that happens to all of us, they're going to freak out the next time they have a headache. Why? Because they remember last time they had that. That was the beginning of my stroke. That was the beginning of the bad news. So it's not only what happened to our bodies, it's also affect the way we are thinking and the fear of being terrified. What happened? The next time I have a headache, I'm going to the AR. This is what happened. This is how our body, our souls, and our mind are intertwined and all connected. So how many times we just want to get healed? Just fix me, Just give me what I want. And Christ is trying to say, sit with me, child. Tell me more. As I see these stories that highlight many stereotypes in the community about children, about women, but also about the way of grieving, as we move to the others, this guy is saying, Christ, help me, help me. And in the middle of that, Christ looks really very cruel. He looks like, instead of focusing on what this guy is crying for, he cannot wait. Every second's matter. And instead of that, Christ is saying, who touched me? Just put yourself in his place. And imagine how you should feel. I came, I really humiliate myself in front of you, and the response to that is like, just put you on hold, wait here. Well, just find out what happened. Who touched me? Just imagine as the story shifts from the focusing on this guy who put everything down and say, I will sell everything, even my belief, my dignity, my theology, my philosophy, you name it, in one side, and my love to my daughter in the other side. And you say, like, this guy should be really celebrated as a wonderful father. But instead of that, is almost like Christ putting dirt on and say, stay on side. Let's wait a minute here. Let's try to find out who touched me. And we do not know that Christ was actually giving this guy another good lessons. We have no idea. When we go through the events, we have no idea. You should be angry at Christ. You should feeling like, I humiliated myself, and your response was not really good to me. But Christ was doing something good for this guy, but at the moment he has no idea. He felt like Christ is mocking me. Christ is taking advantage of my own pain and needs. This is why Christ was teaching him a lesson even through his silence, even through the way he appeared like he did not care, but actually he cared. And when Christ jumped into this woman, and he told her, I'm not here just to tell you that you are feeling well. She felt when she touched Christ as well. But imagine somebody's being sick for 12 years. You think they will buy in a minute that, oh, thanks to God, I'm clean now, I'm good, I'm fully back to normal. What will be the question in their head? Is this true? Or maybe this is a good moment? What happens if I go back to my sickness in a few days or later? So there's many questions that when you go through a big journey of suffering physically, the part of doubts in your mind and your heart gets bigger. You doubt. You doubt your own even body. Your own body that used to do a lot of things, you start to doubt. You start to doubt if this is just kind of like a normal thing, or I'm going down. So this idea is Christ is coming not only to heal your appearance, your physical, but I say in the back of your head, millions of questions. She tried many physicians. She tried many plants. She tried many things. And maybe some worked for hours, right? And maybe some worked because just psychologically she believed and she wants to buy the idea that somebody can heal me. And maybe worked for hours or for days. But then later find out I still have the same problem. So your faith, your joy turns into deep despair. So this woman was not only in need for really physical, really well-being, but she needs somebody to restore her, to say, you are clean. You are my daughter. That's how Christ called her. I want to heal you and know that you have room. I know that your family stayed away from you. Maybe there is a big chance that your own husband, by the law, by the Jewish law, they have the right to divorce her for her sickness. So there is a big chance that this woman lost her husband, lost her money, lost her family. She cannot practice her faith. She cannot come close to the synagogue or the woman's section that was already far in the temple. She lost everything. But she kept trying. And she believed, like, I did not need a big ceremony. If I just touch him secretly, nobody needs to know. If I do it, if I sneaked in and I do little thing. So, and then Christ will come because he wants to use the story of this woman who came secretly trying to steal God's healing. Christ wants to use that story to send a signal to Jairus, to the father of this young lady. And then the story goes on when they told him, oh, sorry, it's too late. Do not bother the master. The daughter already died. I could not keep myself away from reminding me of some, maybe personally traumatized from how the Middle Eastern, and especially the Egyptians, mourns, how they really deal with the death. And as I was reading that and going in, it took me back to like more than 20 years when I was pastor in Egypt. And remember doing funerals was really was a traumatizing event to do funerals in Egypt. Why? Because people actually will wail out of the top of their lungs. They will scream very loudly to the point you cannot imagine. And you could not, sometimes I could use like at least 15 minutes before I do the funeral, just try to calm so my voice can come and people can hear me through the mic. And all that, we call it, there is sometimes like hot issues, like some people died immediately, like crisis, car accident, things like that. And the way we do things there, it's just on the same day. So things are very hot. So the people who are very close to the person that passed away, normally, maybe they are the one that's really crying less. It's not because they are less sad. Their sadness is so deep. Maybe they screamed once or twice, but then you find them, their sadness so deep to the point you can tell they are weak and they feel like they're going to black out. But there are those who are mourners, they are really actually like a business. There are those who just want to show the family that we love you and we just miss that. And they are the one that will make more noise than anybody else. And as you walk through that, if you read the text again, that as Christ walking in and this very big noise in the house, because they were hired mourners. There are people you are paid to say things and almost like they are singing. And I remember that I heard that as a child in Egypt. It's the most terrible things that you can hear. It's unbelievable. If your heart is broken little bit, your heart will be broken fully just listening. They're very smart on doing it in a poetic, dark way. And it's like more like a singing and a very eloquent in their native language. So it's a piece of very dark singing, if you can call it this way. And these people are hired to do that. So there are fake mourners and there are true mourners. The fake mourners, those who are just really, they're doing their job. It doesn't matter if it's a man, if it's really close to your heart or not, whatever. And those who are really so sad deeply, sometimes they're so silent. Because their sadness take all the energy out of them. They cannot even scream, or maybe they screamed until they became out of energy to scream. They have no power. They're so down and so deep sadness to be silent. They have no words. And they go in their own world because they feel like there is no words on earth can answer their millions questions. So as Christ, that's why Christ did what? He kept all these mourners away and says, stay away. And he goes in the room with the father, the mother, and the three that we know that he was keeping close eye on them, the three disciples. And he kept everybody else because he wants the father and the mother to be in the moment, to be with the body of their daughter, to understand the healing. Yes, it's going to happen, but I want you to understand that God can heal you if he's closer to you or if he's far away from you. God can heal you by touching or by words. And we see that in the story of the centurion, the Romans guy who came to Christ and asked, and Christ did not go anywhere. He just said it. He said the word, and your daughter is healed, and was done story. But in this story, because this guy believed that if you come and touch it, my daughter, then she will be healed. But Christ was saying that I heal in many ways. How many times that we really have problems because we want God to heal us in a specific way on our terms. And we cannot be humble to let God lead us in this way. So as we come to the story that we see the difference, that God heals those who are come secretly, like sneaking in, trying to steal his healing and blessing, because they're ashamed of who they are. And those who come so publicly and openly talking about, I need you. I am afraid that my child is dying. How many times can we be open and honest to tell God that we are afraid? How many times, ask yourself that, how many times you felt really vulnerable and said it out loud in a prayer and say that I'm afraid. I'm afraid of aging. I'm afraid of being by myself. I'm afraid of some crisis happened to me or to my loved ones. Fear, fear, fear. But God is talking about replace your fear with faith. Faith that's find an open end for you. Faith that's remind us that we all have room and we all go through the healing, but not according to your agenda, but only according to God's agenda. As we come to this moment, let us remind ourselves that we are his children and God is still working to only not to heal our bodies, but our minds and our souls. He is the doctor of our souls. He is the only best psychologist can understand how complicated we are, and he can help us to go through this life until we meet as one family in Christ in heaven. Amen.
If anyone has any prayer requests, joys, or concerns, please raise your hand.